The massive chamber of the Galactic Council hummed with 1,000 different voices. Beings from across the galaxy filled the circular hall, their forms as varied as the stars themselves. Some floated in containment fields. Others stood on multiple legs. A few existed as pure energy, their thoughts translated by advanced machines. At the center podium stood Commander Vree, a towering creature with 4 arms and scales that shimmered like oil on water. His voice boomed through the translators that hung in the air like invisible threads connecting every mind in the room. Members of the Council, I present the final moments of the Lixian experimental vessel, the Wandering Star. The lights dimmed. Above them, a hologram flickered to life, showing the black canvas of space. A ship appeared in the projection, and several Council members gasped at its beauty. The vessel was art made metal. It curved and flowed like water frozen in time. Crystalline panels caught starlight and scattered it in rainbow patterns. Every line spoke of grace and efficiency. Then the pirates appeared. The attacking ships were ugly things, cobbled together from scrap and stolen parts. They moved like hungry animals circling prey. Their weapons fired in brutal, uncoordinated bursts. The elegant Wandering Star tried to respond. Its shields flickered once, a pale blue shimmer. Then they vanished like soap bubbles. The ship's weapons fired back, beautiful beams of concentrated energy that hit the pirate vessels and did absolutely nothing. The pirates moved closer. Their crude cannons tore into the Wandering Star's hull. The beautiful ship came apart like wet paper. Sections broke away. Atmosphere vented into space in glittering clouds of ice. In less than 3 minutes, nothing remained but debris and silence. The hologram faded. The lights came back up. The Lixian design philosophy, Vree continued, his satisfaction barely hidden, prioritized beauty and efficiency above all else. As you have witnessed, this approach is fatally flawed. A ship that cannot survive its first battle is not a ship at all. It is a very expensive coffin. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the council. The Lixian delegation sat in their section, heads bowed in shame. Their lead scientist, a slender being named Clara, stared at her hands and said nothing. I move, Vree declared, raising one of his 4 arms, that all similar design projects be immediately terminated and scrapped. We cannot afford to waste resources on ships that cannot fight. The vote was called. One by one, species after species agreed. The decision was unanimous. The Wandering Star design was officially declared a failure. In the back corner of the chamber, in a section reserved for younger council members, sat the Earth delegation. Humans were relatively new to galactic politics. They had only made contact with alien species 40 years ago, and they were still considered primitives by most of the council. Their technology was crude. Their ships were slow. But they were stubborn, and they had earned a small voice in council matters through sheer determination. Captain James Mitchell sat in the Earth section. His gray eyes focused on the hologram replay he had recorded on his personal device. Next to him, Dr. Robert Hayes was running calculations on a data pad, his fingers moving quickly across the screen. The frame is solid, Robert whispered. Look at how long it held together even after the shields failed. The power distribution system is incredible. The problem is not the design itself. James nodded slowly. They built a racing car when they needed a tank. Can we fix it? Maybe. James looked at the wreckage still floating in the hologram above. How much do you think they would sell it for? Robert looked at his friend like he had gone insane. You want to buy a ship that the entire Galactic Council just declared worthless? They see a failure, James said quietly. I see potential. Before Robert could argue, James stood up. He raised his hand, the gesture looking small and insignificant in the vast chamber. Several species noticed and fell silent, curious what the humans would say. The Earth delegation requests permission to speak, James called out. Vree looked annoyed but nodded. Speak, human. Earth would like to purchase the wreckage of the Wandering Star and all associated design files. The chamber erupted in laughter. The sound came from 100 different species translated into barks, chirps, hums and frequencies humans could not even hear. But the message was clear. They thought it was a joke. Vree's scales rippled with amusement. The humans wish to buy our garbage? How perfectly appropriate. Very well, human. 10,000 credits and you may have your trash. Agreed, James said immediately, sitting back down. The laughter continued as the council moved to other business. Vree leaned toward his military aide, a younger Vioranan named Dax. The humans are scavengers. They cannot build proper warships, so they pick through our failures. Pathetic. But James was not listening to the insults. He was already sending messages to Earth, to the massive orbital shipyard that circled the moon. His fingers moved across his communicator, sending files and instructions. Robert leaned over. Command is going to think we are crazy. Probably, James admitted. But that ship has good bones. The Lixians built something beautiful that could not survive. We are going to make it ugly and unstoppable. You really think we can fix it? James pulled up the schematics again, zooming in on the ship's skeletal frame. Robert, humans have been taking broken things and making them work since we lived in caves. This is what we do best. We adapt. We improvise. We make do with what we have. Clara, the Lixian scientist, was walking past the human section when she heard these words. She stopped and looked at the two humans hunched over their glowing screens. Part of her wanted to tell them they were fools. The wandering star had been her dream, her masterpiece, and it had failed completely. What could these primitive humans possibly do with it? But another part of her, a small voice she tried to ignore, whispered a different thought. The humans had come from a violent world. They had fought their way to the stars through 2 world wars, countless conflicts, and disasters that would have destroyed gentler species. They had survived ice ages and plagues and their own worst instincts. If anyone could take a failed dream and make it work, perhaps it would be them. She walked away without saying anything. But she made a note in her personal log to request assignment as an observer to whatever project the humans were planning. She had to see what they would do with her failure. In the vast chamber, the council continued its business, making decisions that would affect billions of lives across thousands of worlds. But in the back corner, 2 humans were already planning something that would change everything. They did not know it yet. Neither did anyone else. All they knew was that they had bought themselves a broken ship and a chance to prove that human stubbornness was worth more than alien elegance. The wandering star was dead. But something new was about to be born. 6 months had passed since James Mitchell made what everyone called the worst purchase in human history. The wreckage of the wandering star now hung suspended in the main construction bay of Armstrong Orbital Shipyard, floating above the lunar surface like a broken dream waiting to be remade. The bay was chaos. Hundreds of human workers moved around the ship like ants rebuilding their hill after a storm. Welding torches sent sparks flying in all directions, creating tiny stars that died in the vacuum of space. Heavy machinery lifted massive plates of armor into position. The constant chatter of workers filled every communication channel. Emma Clark stood on a floating platform near the ship's midsection, her helmet display showing structural readings that made her shake her head. She was the chief engineer, a woman who had spent 20 years building everything from submarines to space stations. She knew metal and stress points the way poets knew words. "This hull is too thin," she announced over the comm system. "The Lixians built this thing like expensive china. Beautiful to look at, shatters when you drop it. So we make it thicker," came James's voice. He floated nearby in a work suit, examining a section of the damaged frame. "How much thicker?" "Submarine hull standards. Triple layered. Reactive armor on the outside." Emma whistled. "That will add 60,000 tons to the weight. Then we upgrade the engines to compensate." Across the bay, Thomas Wright was having his own crisis with the weapons systems. He was a weapons specialist who had designed defense systems for Mars Colony. He stood in front of a holographic display showing the wandering star's original armament and looked disgusted. "These energy weapons are useless," he announced to anyone listening. "They are incredibly efficient and beautifully designed. They also could not punch a hole through aluminum foil." Robert Hayes floated over, his data pad showing power consumption charts. "The Lixians designed them to minimize energy use. Very elegant." "Elegant does not win battles," Thomas growled. "We need railguns. Big ones. Lots of them." "Railguns are primitive technology," Clara's voice cut in. The Lixian scientist had requested assignment as an observer, and the humans had agreed. She floated nearby, her slender form looking fragile in the bulky environment suit. "They waste energy. They require physical ammunition. They are crude." Thomas grinned inside his helmet. "Lady Crude wins wars. You know what a railgun slug does when it hits a ship at .03 light speed? It does not care about your shields or your fancy armor. It just goes straight through and keeps going. But the recoil, the power requirements. Which is why we will install dozens of them," Thomas interrupted cheerfully. "If one overheats, we switch to the next. And the next. And the next." Clara said nothing. She was beginning to understand how humans thought. Where Lixians would design one perfect system, humans would install 5 crude ones and hope at least 3 worked at any given time. Deep in the ship's core, another team was working on something that made the other species' observers shake their heads in confusion. They were building a second bridge. And then a third. This is absurd, Lieutenant Dax commented. He was the VRYNN military observer, assigned to watch the human project and report back to Commander Vri. Why does one ship need 3 command centers? Emma, who was overseeing the construction, did not even look up from her welding. Because 2 might get destroyed. But the redundancy, the wasted space, is the difference between a dead crew and a living one, Emma finished. You build a ship with 1 bridge, I hit that bridge, your ship is dead in space. You build a ship with 3 bridges, I have to hit all 3. That takes time. Time you can use to hit me back or run away. The work continued for months. Every system was duplicated, then triplicate. Power conduits ran in parallel paths throughout the ship. If one got cut, power automatically rerouted through the others. Life support systems were installed in every major section, each capable of operating independently. Escape pods were mounted in every corridor, far more than regulations required. You have enough escape pods for 3 times your crew capacity, Clara observed one day. James shrugged. Rather have too many than not enough. You know how I lost my first command? Single hit took out life support. Backup system failed. 11 people died because we did not have a third option. Never again. The ship was transforming. The elegant curves disappeared under angular armor plating. The smooth hull became a patchwork of different metals and materials, each chosen for specific defensive properties. Weapons bristled from every angle. Point defense turrets designed to shoot down incoming missiles covered the hull like metal thorns. It looks like a junkyard, Dax reported to his superiors. The humans have no aesthetic sense whatsoever. But the humans did not care about beauty. They cared about survival. Robert had redesigned the entire power system. The original Lixian reactor was efficient but delicate. Robert installed a second fusion reactor, then a third backup system, then emergency batteries throughout the ship. If the main reactor fails, backup kicks in. If that fails, tertiary system activates. If all else fails, batteries can keep life support running for 72 hours. This is over-engineering to an absurd degree, Clara protested. No such thing, Robert replied. Over-engineering means you are still alive when everyone else is dead. The weapons systems grew and multiplied like a virus. Thomas installed railguns, then missile pods, then close-range cannons for point defense. Each system had manual override switches. Why manual controls? Clara asked. Your computers are more accurate. Because computers can be hacked or damaged, Thomas explained patiently. If my targeting computer dies, I want to be able to point my gun and pull the trigger like my great-great-grandfather did. Simple. Reliable. Effective. Finally, after 6 months of constant work, the ship was ready for her first power-up test. James stood in the primary bridge, surrounded by his core team. Emma was in the auxiliary bridge deep in the ship's armored core. Robert was in engineering. Thomas sat at weapons control. All stations report, James ordered. One by one, systems came online. Lights flickered to life throughout the ship. The reactors hummed with power. Weapons systems initialized with satisfying mechanical sounds. The bridge displays lit up, showing the status of hundreds of systems, all operating in parallel. Clara stood in the observation deck with other alien observers. They stared at the transformed ship in silence. It no longer looked anything like the graceful wandering star. It was bulky and asymmetrical. Armor plates overlapped in no particular pattern. Cables and conduits ran along the outside hull because there simply was not enough room inside for all the systems the humans had crammed into it. Weapons jutted out at odd angles. The whole thing looked like it had been assembled by a committee that could not agree on anything. It is hideous, Dax whispered. It is perfect, James said from the bridge, looking at his creation with pride. Emma's voice came through the comm, all structural integrity tests passed. She will hold together. Weapons systems fully operational, Thomas reported. We have enough firepower to take on a small fleet. Power systems stable, Robert added. All redundancies functioning. James leaned back in his captain's chair. The ship needed a new name. The Wandering Star had died in her first battle. This was something different now. Something tougher. Something that deserved another chance to prove itself. Computer, update ship registry. New designation, second chance. The name appeared on displays throughout the ship. Some of the human crew members cheered. The alien observers looked confused. Why that name? Clara asked. James smiled. Because everyone deserves a second chance. Your people built a beautiful ship that failed. We took that failure and made it into something that will survive. That is what humans do best. We take broken things and fix them. We take failures and learn from them. We never give up. The second chance hung in space, ugly and brutal and ready. She did not look like any other ship in the galaxy. She looked like exactly what she was, a human solution to an alien problem. And she was about to prove that sometimes ugly and tough beats beautiful and fragile every single time. The second chance moved through the dark space of the disputed territories like a predator testing new ground. Her crew had spent 3 weeks running systems checks and training exercises. Everything worked exactly as designed, which meant half the systems were always breaking down and the other half were picking up the slack. The human crew considered this normal. The alien observers considered it terrifying. James sat in the captain's chair, reviewing navigation charts. Beside him, Helen Foster monitored communications with the calm efficiency of someone who had spent years listening to the noise of space. Robert was deep in engineering, making small adjustments to the power flow. Thomas sat at weapons control, looking almost disappointed that nothing had tried to shoot at them yet. Lieutenant Dax, the VRNN observer, stood near the back of the bridge looking uncomfortable. He had filed 17 reports to his superiors describing the humans as reckless, disorganized, and borderline insane. None of his reports mentioned that the ship actually worked. "Captain," Helen called out suddenly. "Distress signal. Medical frigate under attack. Bearing 273. James pulled up the tactical display. 6 hostile ships surrounded a smaller vessel marked with medical insignias. The attacking ships were Ravager Fleet pirates, the same group that had destroyed the original Wandering Star. "Battle stations," James ordered calmly. "Emma, get to auxiliary bridge. Robert, engineering bridge is yours. Thomas, weapons free when ready." The crew moved with practiced efficiency. Alarms blared throughout the ship. Blast doors sealed. Emergency lights came on in key corridors. "Captain," Dax protested, his translator making his voice sound mechanical. "Regulations require we call for backup before engaging 6 hostile vessels." "That medical ship does not have time for regulations," James replied. He opened a communication channel. "Ravager Fleet, this is the second chance. Break off your attack immediately." The response came in the form of weapons fire and mocking laughter. The pirates recognized the ship design, or thought they did. They had destroyed 1 Wandering Star already. This would be easy prey. "They are targeting our forward section," Helen reported. "Let them," James said. "Route all shield power to forward arc. Thomas, hold fire." The Ravager ships concentrated their fire on the second chance's nose. Energy weapons and kinetic projectiles slammed into the shields. The defensive barrier flickered, strained under the assault, then collapsed completely. "Shields down," Helen announced. But instead of the hull crumbling like the original Wandering Star, something different happened. The armor held. Shots that should have torn through the ship left only scorch marks and small dents. The triple-layered plating absorbed impact after impact. "Armor integrity at 92%, Emma reported from the auxiliary bridge. "Some surface damage. No penetration." The Ravager pirates kept firing, clearly confused. This was supposed to be an easy kill. The ship looked like the same design they had destroyed before. Why was it not breaking apart? James watched the tactical display as the pirates moved closer, concentrating their fire. They were making the classic mistake of assuming that what had worked before would work again. "Now, Thomas," James said quietly. The second chance erupted with violence. Dozens of railguns opened fire simultaneously. Solid metal slugs, accelerated to incredible speeds, tore through space. The pirates' shields, designed to deflect energy weapons, did nothing against physical projectiles moving at a fraction of light speed. 1 Ravager ship exploded immediately, its reactor breached by a railgun slug that punched straight through from bow to stern. Another lost its engines and began tumbling out of control, venting atmosphere. 4 hostiles remaining, Thomas reported with satisfaction. "Main batteries reloading." "Switch to secondary weapons," James ordered. Without missing a beat, a completely different set of railguns opened fire. The Ravagers, expecting the human ship to need time to reload, were caught completely unprepared. Another ship took catastrophic damage and retreated, trailing debris. "Return fire incoming," Helen warned. The bridge shook as multiple impacts struck home. Sparks flew from a control panel. The lights flickered. Alarms screamed warnings across every station. "Hull breach, Section 7, someone called out. "Sealing bulkheads," Emma confirmed. "Damage control teams responding." Clara, strapped into a safety seat near the back of the bridge, watched her displays in amazement. Human crew members were running through damaged corridors wearing emergency suits. They were welding hull breaches closed while the ship was still under fire. It was insanity. Main batteries overheating, Thomas reported. Switched to tertiary systems. A third set of weapons came online. Dax stared at his tactical board in disbelief. How many weapons does this ship have? Enough, James replied simply. The battle became brutal. The second chance traded shots with the 3 remaining Ravager ships at close range. Her armor was scorched and dented. Hull breaches appeared in multiple sections. Warning lights covered every console. Main reactor fluctuating, Robert called from engineering. Power output dropping. Switch to backup reactor, James ordered. Already on it. Rerouting through secondary power grid. The ship never stopped fighting. When one system failed, another took over. When weapons overheated, fresh ones came online. When armor was breached, emergency teams sealed it and kept working. The Ravager flagship, larger and more heavily armed than its companions, turned its full attention to the second chance. Its captain had finally realized this was not the same ship they had fought before. They are preparing to ram us, Helen warned, her voice tight with tension. James studied the tactical display for 3 seconds. Then he smiled. No. We are going to ram them. All hands brace for impact. Thomas, prepare boarding charges. Captain, this is suicide. Dax shouted. Maybe, James acknowledged. But it will definitely work. The second chance accelerated directly toward the Ravager flagship. Her reinforced prow, designed specifically for exactly this kind of insane tactic, aimed at the enemy's bridge section. The Ravager captain fired everything he had, but the human ship kept coming. The impact was tremendous. Metal screamed. Systems failed. Everyone was thrown forward against their restraints. But the reinforced prow punched through the Ravager's shields and buried itself deep in their hull. Boarding charges now, James ordered. Thomas triggered explosives built into the ship's armored nose. Shaped charges blew inward through the Ravager's hull. 50 human Marines, wearing combat armor and carrying weapons, poured through the breach. The 2 remaining Ravager ships, seeing their flagship crippled and humans actually boarding it in the middle of a battle, broke formation and fled into hyperspace. Silence fell over the bridge, broken only by alarms and the hiss of fire suppressant systems. Status, James said calmly, unbuckling from his chair. Main bridge damaged but functional, Helen reported. Auxiliary and engineering bridges both operational. We have fires on 5 decks, Emma added. Hull breaches on 3 more. Main reactor offline but backup stable. The medical frigate? James asked. Safe. They are asking if they can help with our repairs. James nodded. Tell them yes. Clara unbuckled from her seat with shaking hands. Her display showed damage that should have destroyed any normal ship 3 times over. But the second chance was still flying. Still fighting. Still protecting her crew. How? She whispered. How are you still alive? James looked at the damage report scrolling across his screen. Because we do not give up. When one system fails, another takes over. When armor breaks, we seal it. When weapons die, we switch to backups. We just keep going. Outside, rescue ships were arriving. They found the second chance drifting, sparking, burning on multiple decks. But her weapons were still tracking targets. Her crew was still fighting to save their ship. One rescue captain, who had fought in 50 battles, sent a message to Galactic Command that would change everything. The humans took the weakest ship design in the galaxy and made it unkillable. We need to learn from them. The story of the second chance spread through the galaxy like wildfire. Within weeks, every military commander knew about the human ship that refused to die. The battle recordings showed something that should have been impossible. A vessel taking damage that would destroy 3 normal ships, yet continuing to fight with terrifying effectiveness. Admiral Harris of the Galactic Defense Fleet watched the recordings for the 7th time in his private office. He was a Thalian, a species known for careful planning and traditional tactics. His 4 eyes tracked every moment of the battle, analyzing each decision the humans made. They fight like madmen, his aide commented. No, Harris corrected quietly. They fight like survivors. There is a difference. The recording spread to civilian channels. Military academies across the galaxy began studying human tactics. Engineering schools debated the concept of redundancy versus efficiency. And slowly, quietly, other species began asking questions. The first official request came from the Meridian Defense Force. Their commander, a veteran named Tron, sent a formal communication to Earth's military headquarters. The message was simple: We would like to discuss modifications to our fleet using human engineering principles. James was promoted to admiral and given command of Earth's first expeditionary fleet. He stood in his new office on Armstrong Station, looking at the requests piling up on his desk. 17 different species wanted human engineers to modify their ships. "We do not have enough people for this," Robert said, reviewing the requests. He had been appointed head of the newly created Human Engineering Corps, a title that made him laugh every time someone used it. "Then we teach them," James replied. "We show them how we think, how we build, how we prepare for the worst." Emma walked into the office carrying a data pad filled with technical specifications. "The Thalians want to retrofit their entire cruiser fleet. They are offering a ridiculous amount of money." "Tell them we will do it," James said. "But we work on our terms. Full redundancy. Multiple backups. No compromises." The first retrofit station opened in orbit around Mars 3 months later. Alien ships began arriving, sleek and elegant vessels that represented the peak of their respective technologies. Human engineers swarmed over them like mechanics working on expensive cars that had been driven too gently. "Your power distribution is beautiful," a human engineer told a shocked Lixian designer. "It is also a single point of failure. One hit here and your entire ship goes dark. But the efficiency means nothing when you are dead. We are adding backup conduits, and emergency batteries, and manual override switches." The cultural clash was immediate and constant. Species that had spent centuries perfecting elegant, efficient designs watched in horror as humans bolted armor plates over smooth hulls, installed redundant systems in every available space, and added manual controls to automated systems. "This ruins the aesthetic," a VRNN engineer complained as humans welded additional armor to his ship's hull. Thomas, now chief weapons specialist for the retrofit program, shrugged. "Pretty does not stop bullets. Ugly and alive beats beautiful and dead every time." But the results spoke for themselves. Ships that received human modifications became noticeably harder to kill. They could take more damage, fight longer, and protect their crews better. Word spread. More requests came in. Clara had joined the Human Engineering Corps as a liaison between human and Lixian design philosophies. She found herself explaining human thinking to species that could not comprehend it. "They are obsessed with failure," she explained to a group of Lixian students. "Where we design systems to work perfectly, humans design systems assuming everything will break. They prepare for disasters that might never happen." "That is paranoid," one student protested. "That is why they survive," Clara replied quietly. The galaxy was changing, adapting to human ideas. But then news arrived that made every military commander stop and reconsider everything they knew about warfare. The Void Collective had appeared at the edge of known space. No one knew where they came from. Their ships were different from anything seen before, composed of dark metal that seemed to absorb light. And they were winning. The Collective's technology was terrifying in its simplicity. Their ships adapted. They analyzed enemy tactics in real time and modified their defenses accordingly. The first 3 fleets sent against them were destroyed with almost contemptuous ease. Admiral Harris watched recordings of the battles with growing dread. The Collective ships would encounter a new weapon type, take damage for a few moments, then their hulls would shimmer and reconfigure. The same weapon would become useless. Energy weapons, missiles, kinetic projectiles. The Collective adapted to everything within minutes. "They are learning machines," Robert said, studying the data. "Some kind of advanced artificial intelligence controlling adaptive matter. They optimize their defenses based on observed threats." "Can we fight them?" James asked. "Not with conventional tactics. They will just adapt and counter everything we throw at them." The Galactic Council convened an emergency session. For the first time in recorded history, the chamber was silent. Species that had argued for centuries over minor trade disputes now faced extinction from an enemy they could not understand. Admiral Harris stood at the central podium, his voice heavy with the weight of defeat. "The Collective's mothership has been detected near the Galactic core. It is larger than anything we have ever built. 6 fleets have engaged it. None survived. It learns from every encounter and becomes stronger." Commander Vree, humbled by recent events, spoke up. "What do you recommend, Admiral?" Harris was quiet for a long moment. Then he looked toward the human delegation. "I recommend we send the humans." The chamber erupted in argument. Some species protested that humans were too primitive, too reckless. Others pointed out that human ships were the only ones consistently surviving combat. The debate raged for hours. Finally, James stood up. "The Collective adapts to predictable patterns. It learns from efficient, logical tactics. Every fleet you have sent fights the same way, optimized, refined, perfect. And every fleet has failed. What are you suggesting? Harris asked. Send us because we do not fight logically. We over-engineer. We use redundant systems. We make decisions that your tactical computers would call mistakes. Maybe that is exactly what we need against an enemy that expects perfection. The vote was close, but it passed. Earth's first expeditionary fleet was authorized to engage the Void Collective's mothership. 50 ships, all modified with human engineering principles. Each one a testament to the philosophy that survival mattered more than elegance. The second chance would lead the fleet. She was scarred from a dozen battles now, patched and repaired so many times that almost nothing remained of the original Lixian design. She was ugly, asymmetrical, and covered in mismatched armor plates. She was also the most feared ship in the galaxy. James stood on the bridge, looking at the star charts showing their destination. The Galactic Core. The Void Collective's mothership. A battle that would decide the fate of every living species. Think we can win? Emma asked from her station. James smiled grimly. We are humans. We specialize in doing impossible things with inadequate resources. This should be interesting. The fleet began preparations to jump. Across the galaxy, billions of beings watched and waited. Some prayed to their gods. Others calculated odds of survival. But the humans just checked their backup systems one more time and prepared to fight. The galactic core burned with ancient light as Earth's first expeditionary fleet emerged from hyperspace. 50 human-modified ships dropped into normal space in perfect formation, their mismatched armor and bristling weapons making them look like a gang of street fighters arriving at a formal dance. At the center of the formation, the second chance led the way. Her hull bore the scars of every battle she had survived. Patched armor plates covered patched armor plates. Some sections had been rebuilt so many times that no original material remained. She was ugly, brutal, and absolutely ready. James stood on the bridge, studying the tactical display. What he saw made his blood run cold. The Void Collective's mothership hung in space like a dark star. It was massive beyond comprehension, easily 20 times larger than the biggest ship humanity had ever built. Its hull was black, absorbing light instead of reflecting it. Strange geometric patterns shifted across its surface like living equations. Sensors are going crazy, Helen reported, her voice tight. That thing is broadcasting on every frequency. It is analyzing us right now. Around the mothership, smaller collective vessels moved in perfect synchronization. They looked like pieces of the mothership that had broken off and learned to fly independently. Each one was larger than a human cruiser. All ships, defensive formation, James ordered. Shields up. Weapons hot. Remember the plan. The plan was simple because complicated plans never survive first contact with the enemy. Hit hard, hit fast, and try to cause so much chaos that the collective's adaptive systems could not keep up. They are moving to engage, Thomas reported from weapons control. The collective ships flowed forward like liquid metal. Their weapons fired, beams of energy that seemed to bend space itself. The human fleet scattered, breaking formation in a pattern that looked random but was carefully practiced. Taking fire, came reports from multiple ships. The collective ships were learning. Their weapons adjusted after each shot, becoming more accurate. But the human ships were not where the targeting computers expected them to be. Captains made seemingly irrational decisions, zigzagging when they should go straight, accelerating when they should brake. The collective cannot predict chaos, Robert had explained during the planning sessions. So we give them chaos. The second chance dove toward the mothership, weapons blazing. Railgun slugs hammered into the dark hull. For a moment, the impacts left bright scars. Then the hull shimmered and the metal reconfigured. The next volley of railgun fire bounced off harmlessly. They adapted to kinetic weapons, Thomas cursed. Switch to missiles, James ordered. Missile pods opened across the fleet. Hundreds of projectiles streaked toward collective ships. Some hit. Some were intercepted. The collective's defenses learned the missile trajectories and began shooting them down with increasing accuracy. Missiles now 70% ineffective, Emma reported from auxiliary bridge. All ships switched to energy weapons, James commanded. The collective had just adapted to kinetic attacks. Now the entire human fleet switched tactics. Energy beams and plasma bolts lit up space. The collective ships shimmered again, reconfiguring their hulls. But it took them precious seconds to adapt. Keep switching, James said. Never give them the same attack twice in a row. The battle became a deadly dance. Human ships would fire kinetic weapons, then switched to energy, then back to kinetic before the collective could fully adapt. Captains made decisions based on instinct rather than computer calculations. They wasted ammunition on shots that should miss. They broke off attacks for no logical reason. And it was working. The collective's adaptive algorithms were designed to counter logical, efficient tactics. They could not handle randomness. Every time they adapted to one threat, humans would switch to something else or attack from an unexpected angle. But the mothership was another matter entirely. Main fleet, focus on the escort ships, James ordered. The second chance is going for the mothership. Captain, that is suicide, Dax protested. He had insisted on joining this mission, much to everyone's surprise. Probably, James agreed. Which is why everyone else is getting to escape pods. Skeleton crew only from this point. Emma, Robert, Thomas, you have 2 minutes to evacuate. Not a chance, Emma replied immediately. I am not leaving my engines, Robert added. Thomas just laughed. You think I am going to miss this? James smiled despite the situation. Stubborn fools. We learned from the best, sir, Helen said quietly. The second chance accelerated toward the mothership. Every weapon fired at maximum rate. The collective vessel's defenses adapted within seconds, but the human ship kept coming. Hull breaches appeared. Systems failed. Alarms screamed warnings. Main reactor critical, Robert reported. Switching to backup. Shields down, Helen called. Armor holding, Emma countered. Barely. The mothership fired a massive beam weapon directly at the second chance. The ship's entire forward section exploded. The bridge went dark. Emergency lights flickered on. Bridge systems failed, James said calmly. Switching control to auxiliary bridge. Emma, she is yours. Deep in the ship's armored core, Emma took command. Her screens showed catastrophic damage. The second chance was dying. But she was not dead yet. All remaining crew to escape pods, Emma ordered. Automated systems taking over. Escape pods began launching from every section of the ship. Hundreds of them, far more than needed for the skeleton crew, scattered in all directions. The collective's targeting systems tried to track them all and became confused. The second chance, now running on automated systems and backup power, continued her charge. Sections broke away. The ship was literally falling apart as she flew. But the armored core kept going. Computer, Emma said into the comm before climbing into the last escape pod. Execute final protocol. Authorization Emma Clark Alpha 7. The computer's voice was calm. Final protocol confirmed. It has been an honor serving with you. Emma launched her escape pod and watched through the window. The second chance, now just a burning core with engines attached, slammed into the mothership's hull. The reinforced ram prow, designed years ago for exactly this kind of insane tactic, punched deep into the dark metal. Then every explosive charge the humans had placed throughout the ship detonated simultaneously. The explosion was massive. The mothership's adaptive hull tried to reconfigure, tried to compensate. But it could not adapt to something that would not stop, something that kept coming even after it should have been destroyed. The collective mothership's surface rippled. Geometric patterns flickered and died. The enormous vessel began breaking apart from the inside. The smaller collective ships stopped moving. Their adaptive algorithms, all linked to the mothership's central intelligence, crashed trying to process what had happened. How could something so damaged, so illogical, so inefficient still function? They had no answer. And without the mothership to guide them, they were helpless. The human fleet moved in and finished what the second chance had started. 2 days later, James floated in a rescue ship, watching recovery teams searching for escape pods. Every single crew member from the second chance had survived. Every single one. Because you installed way too many escape pods, Emma said, floating beside him with her arm in a sling. No such thing as too many, James replied. Clara appeared on their communication screen from the Galactic Council station. The collective fleet is retreating. You won. We won, James corrected. All of us together. The wreckage of the second chance was recovered and brought to Armstrong's shipyard. They placed it in a place of honor, a monument to human stubbornness. And beside it, a new ship was already under construction. Larger, tougher, with even more redundant systems. They called her the third chance. Because humans never stopped learning from their failures, never stopped improving, and never, ever gave up.